I'm not saying he's a twit. I actually think Brosnan was the perfect modern Bond. The modern James Bond is expected to show emotion, and that's where I think he excelled. He showed you behind the mask, but it would never linger. He'd take it away. He knew where the cut-off point was. But if there's one thing his portrayal lacked, it was the intelligence. Far too often he's using his magic watch to get himself out of this situation, that situation, this situation. It's just too many times. I really didn't like how he would get into gunfights with armies, and it's just him versus an army. What are they afraid of? It's only him. In this film, I get it, like he's standing next to nukes, so they're not suicidal, but is he? Brosnan is a real mixed bag. He had his moments, had a few nice lines here and there.
Governments change, the lies stay the same.
But overall, he conveyed intelligence without doing anything particularly intelligent.
You know, you're cleverer than you look.
Still better than looking cleverer than you are. Follow me, please.
I've studied this, and out of all the Bond actors, the writers seemed most afraid of him. They would not give him bad material to perform. I really liked how they gave particular focus to the intelligence of the character, and it wasn't in an ostentatious or pretentious way. And I think that's the problem. The problem I had with Dalton was that a lot of the intelligent things that he does, I don't understand. They don't spoon-feed me how he did something. Let me give you one example. So in his first film, he makes a getaway. We see he drives down an empty road with the other road filled with cops. And I'm wondering, how did he know which road to take? Maybe they could have included a line like, the other road leads directly to the police station. Something like that to clue us in that Bond has done his research. But as it is, it just comes across that he got lucky in what road he took. I don't know. I feel like I've nitpicked, but I do feel like it's an example of them not elaborating on how he knows something. As Saunders says, we're on a need-to-know basis, and maybe that's the point. But just give me something, okay?
It looks like we got away with it.
My cello. It's at the conservatoire.
Don't worry, I'll get you another in Vienna.
No, we must go back for it.
We have about 10 minutes, if we're lucky.
Never mind 10 minutes, I still can't figure this out. There's no way that was their first try. He's the only Bond, to my knowledge, that has used his charm on another male. Not in a gay way, but he figures out what Sanchez is into. Not in a gay way, and he uses that information to destroy him. We hadn't seen him do that before, actually studying the enemy in order to overcome him. The people in Sanchez's closest circles do seem to be run by fear. Bond walks right up to him, shows that he's not scared of him, and offers him something that you really can't put a price on.
And I understand you have a reputation for rewarding loyalty. Very well.
And two, the way he plants the seed of paranoia. It is really clever, but also quite devious, and that's why I'm not going to rank this behaviour too high just in case I set a bad example. One of my guilty pleasures in a Bond film is when he adopts a disguise. Plus points if he does a funny accent.
You are English?
Yes, I'm English.
I speak English. Who is your floor?
3, please.
In Her Majesty's, Bond goes undercover as a genealogist. Basically, he's at the Piz Gloria clinic in disguise as a person who traces family trees. In this context, he's there to confirm whether Blofeld is related to royalty or something like that. The patients in this clinic are on a strict first names only basis. They're having dinner with Bond, and he attempts to use his cover to uncover their surnames. But the enemy is alert to the danger. But that's not the point. I find the attempt itself clever.
I mean, it could easily be that any one of you here is related to a royal house. If only we could go back far enough to find out. Now, if you will tell me your
We
name...
do not use surnames here. It is a rule of the clinic.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know that.
And this is how spies operate. You know, they're not looking at you undress from a long lens. They're having conversations with you. You're giving up information, and you don't even know you're doing it. You know, they're subtle. Oh yeah, they're sneaky, all right. Typically, when you see James Bond solving a problem, it's usually him turning off a bomb with a second to spare. But in this scene, he uses some of the tools available to him to get out of his room in this health clinic. I always thought a good test of a person's intelligence is, are they good at solving problems, and can they improvise? It's relaxing, this, isn't it? Bond does both of these things, and he doesn't need a magic watch to assist him. It's really great stuff. I like when Bond asks Frenchie how she got out of her room, and she says, "Oh, I just use a fingernail file." It is very funny, but I like this because it's showing that the world Bond lives in is an intelligent one. When Connery became James Bond, it was incredible. We actually saw him doing spy work. Spy work, most of it, involves taking precautions, or paranoia if you prefer, and I like that while Bond comes across as kind of chill, he still has his wits about him, and he doesn't allow his cheeks to relax too much. The smartest thing he does in his first film, I love the trap he sets for Dent. It's pretty clever. The fucking guy is an idiot, though, for wasting all his rounds.
Stop it, Professor, and behind you.
It's funny, I thought you'd turn up sooner or later. Sit down.
But what I think's clever about this is his method for staying alert. My mum loves playing this game. It's called Solitaire. She calls it Patience. I just like that he's keeping his mind active while he's waiting. It's a nice little detail that tells you how professional he is. The smartest thing that Connery's Bond does is in his next film, From Russia with Love. We are introduced to a genius, Kronstein. He plans on baiting the British Secret Service into stealing a Russian decoding machine. He says his reading of the British mentality is that they see a threat as a challenge. This is backed up because M says, "Off you go, Bond," and Bond says, "Off I go, M." To cut a long story short, Bond's plan to steal the Lector is ready. He just needs to pick the date.
The 13th? The 14th.
But we learn afterwards that he actually does the heist on the 13th.
Is this the Lecter? Here, take this. It's only tear gas.
I thought it was for tomorrow, but today is the 13th, isn't
It's a
it?
hell of a time to be superstitious. Come on.
Why does he tell his own government and Tanya, who works for the enemy, that he's doing it on the 14th if he's doing it the day before? This is the part where I make your head hurt.
But today is the 13th, Commander.
I'm superstitious.
And it runs a bit deeper than that.
The tape that you are about to hear was received at 10 Downing Street this morning.
I've compiled a list of the most important events in the past 100 years. Some of these were done by the military and Secret Service, and some of them might not have been. What do they all have in common? They all didn't happen on the 13th. I don't think it's something that the Secret Service would ever admit to, the keyword being secret, but I would put good money on it that they are. Yeah, I'd put a fiver on it. I'm not saying superstition is intelligent. It might be the case that Bond was going to do the heist a day before whatever date he picked, and just so happened to be the 13th. But that's unlikely. I really think this is an example of Bond strategizing, and that's a rarity, by the way. It would definitely have given the enemy a headache. They would have been thinking, well, surely he's not going to do it on that date. The British are superstitious about the 13th. But as Kronstein says, he has considered every single counter-move. This is backed up because Red Grant is already on the train. Kronstein anticipated Bond pulling a fast one. So it doesn't work. But that's not the point. I think it would have been stupid if Bond actually did it on the 14th. By him doing it a day earlier, he's caught most of the bad guys off guard, bar one. Now his likelihood of surviving the operation have increased, be it fractionally or otherwise. You never let the enemy know what you're planning. And I think the attempt was clever. And it's only for the fact that the enemy are, as I said, very clever, that this doesn't totally pay off. But still, really great stuff. We learn that 6 years later he still holds those superstitions, and I think it's safe to say that it's largely down to what happened on that train. He always knew where Brosnan's Bond had been. All you had to do was check the news and see where it had been blown up. You laughed again. Take 3. Daniel Craig came along in 2006 and everyone was delighted. They gave his Bond a quirk of being good at B&E. That's breaking and entering to you. It's appropriate that a spy would be good at hacking and being sneaky. Well, I mean, it's more appropriate than demolition, shall we say.
And how the hell did you find out where I lived?
But the scenes I really liked were his Sherlock scenes, and I'm going to start with the Skyfall one. Now, this scene demands that you find Bond intelligent, because if you don't, you're asking the question, hold on a minute, how does he know that that little tattoo on the inside of her wrist comes from a child trafficking trade? And he goes into a fair amount of detail about it too. I know it's not the intention of the writers to have you asking those kinds of questions, but it is very arrogant. How does he know all that stuff? Because he's intelligent. No further questions, Your Honour. The reason I marginally prefer this scene in Casino Royale is because he involves me in it. He makes me understand how he's come to a conclusion.
Now, I'd have normally gone with only child, but, you see, by the way you ignored the quip about your parents, I'm going to have to go with orphan.
All right. By the cut of your suit, you went to Oxford or wherever. Naturally think human beings dress like that. But you wear it with such disdain. My guess is you didn't come from money, and your school friends never let you forget it. Which means you were at that school by the grace of someone else's charity, hence the chip on your shoulder. And since your first thought about me ran to orphan, that's what I'd say you are. Oh, you are? I like this poker thing. And that makes perfect sense. Since MI6 looks for maladjusted young men who give little thought to sacrificing others in order to protect Queen and country. You know, former SAS types with easy smiles and expensive watches. Rolex?
Amiga.
Beautiful.
I think she gives an emotional passive-aggressive response here to lead him off the scent. She recognises he's pretty attentive and this could be a threat to her because she's got her own secrets. It seems to work. He enjoys her response and that he appears to have gotten under her skin. I think he takes it easy on her afterwards for that reason. Mission accomplished as far as she's concerned. Before I tell you what the smartest thing Craig's Bond does, let me explain the situation. So you're in a bar, someone hands you a drink, you take a swig, seconds roll by and you start to think, there was something in that drink that shouldn't have been. What would you do? Do you want to know what I would do? Send the barman over, will you please? I believe there was Rohypnol in that drink.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'll have one of those.
So will I. Certainly.
Well, this is what James Bond does. He gets up, grabs some salt, glass, Little ice? Joking. Now, he just downs some salt water and then throws up whatever it was he drank. I mean, that's brilliant. I asked my friend what she would do, and then I had to explain that it was a scene from a movie. And she said, I would stick 2 fingers down my throat. And, yeah, that would work too. But I think the point of the salt water is to dilute the poison and bring it. It's really clever stuff. As the Joker says, in their final moments, people show you who they really are. And who is James Bond in this scene? He is cool, calm, collected. He's experienced it all before, and he's prepared for what comes next. In 1973, the writers of James Bond had a problem. How do you replace Sean Connery? I'm going to show you how they did it, but also how they didn't do it. Fight scenes are considered important. The fans, nowadays, want James Bond to be good at fighting. Roger Moore's fight scenes, now they were clearly storyboarded, and they had in mind that they're filming actors, not fighters. So you can see here, they're actually giving the actors something to do. I think that translates a lot better than 2 men in a medium shot waving their hands in front of each other. But that's my personal preference. Roger Moore's James Bond didn't really accentuate his physicality. He instead used his brain to win fights. Some people said they find this to be cartoonish, but I just found it funny. Roger Moore is number 1 on my list.
How does that grab you?
I've already talked about this in the Bastard video, but I've been informed that I mispronounced a word in it, so let me just correct myself here. So I said he tricks a tarot card reader into sleeping with him. Apparently the T is silent, so my apologies. He tricks an arrow card reader into sleeping with... Is that better? Once again, quite devious, but this is an example of them retaining the character's sexual appetite, and arguably making it more palatable than how Connery did it. I mean, depends what you think is better or less worse. Someone tricking another person into sleeping with him, or wrapping your hands around someone and going... I thought Bond pretending to be a mannequin to kill Scaramanga was pretty clever, but my friend said she saw it coming a mile off. I can't really think of anything else he does smart in this film now. Oh... Did I already mention this? I think I did. The fights with Jaws are epic.
Don't move.
Once again, pay attention to the storyboarding. It shows Bond thinking how he's going to overcome the situation. And the one-liner makes me proud to be British.
Egyptian builders.
This is 1977, but when Bond is in a race against time, he learns to code within less than a few minutes. The speed of him!
Mr. Bond, sir.
Spies are taught not to eat food or drink from any source they don't trust. So when Drax offers Bond, "May I press you to a cucumber sandwich?"
Thank you, no, nothing at all.
There's a bit more to it, though. Drax is very ideological, and has a worldview which in this film seems to have indoctrinated quite a few people. So by Bond turning down his cucumber sandwich, I think he's pretty much saying, hey, whatever you have to offer, I'm not swallowing. And this is very offensive to people who wish to brainwash you.
Look after Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him.
When does James Bond save the world in Moonraker? Is it when he shoots down this final probe? It is not. Is it when he fires Drax into space? Nope. It's this part here. This is where he saves the world.
Leaving you on your flying stud farm, conceiving your new master race.
If you like, yes.
And of course, anyone not measuring up to your standards of physical perfection will be exterminated.
Certainly.
Interesting. Most interesting.
James Bond hasn't come along in this film and said, I'm good and you're evil. Now, agree with me, or die. He's actually thought about Drax's scheme, dissected his Red Manifesto, and points out to Jaws, look, you're doing this man's dirty work, and you and your guff aren't even in his plans for the Promised Land. This is when Drax realizes how dangerous Bond is, and asks Jaws to kill him.
Expel him!
But the damage is done. Bond, through the power of persuasion, has converted Jaws. And really, it's Jaws who saves the world. But Bond did the groundwork.
Well, here's to us.
What goes up must come down. Yeah, I don't like this film. So Bond gets revenge twice in this film. Then this woman comes along, her parents have been killed, and now she wants revenge. But Bond tells her that this would be wrong, and lectures her on morality. A morality that he himself does not follow.
Octopussy. Octopussy.
I feel like most people would suspect something dodgy is going on when a man keeps rolling a 6, so I don't think I'll name this as an intelligent observation. But I did like the whole bidding war thing. Bond bids much higher than the egg is worth and deduces from the fact his offer is matched and raised that this is something worth investigating. And I also like the sleight of hand thing going on. Very good film.
Jim? The bid is £450,000. I have 475.
I have saved the best for last. So James Bond is knocked out in the car. Mayday rolls the Rolls-Royce into the river. Now Bond is about to drown, but he wakes up in time and gets out. But he realises he can't swim to the surface because Christopher Walken is waiting with a gun. I don't know if this would actually work, but am I gullible? No, I am not. But am I fooled by this? Yes, I am. So James Bond and Paula Ivanova. They both meet up after spying on Christopher Walken. Bond saw that she was recording a conversation that he was having, but she doesn't know that he saw her doing that. But they both make a getaway without asking each other questions. I feel like being a spy would be the most soul-destroying job on Earth. That paranoia, not knowing who to trust, and even the people you think you can trust turn out to be a shit. Roger Moore's Bond was different. He seemed comfortable with the fact that people have their own agendas and are more than likely just in it for themselves. He was okay with that. I think this is what gave him the edge. What I can't get over, though, is how is he able to jump into jacuzzis with these people? To be fair, he does open the door to her. Like, he asks her, what are you up to? But she's kind of cagey and tight-lipped. Well, not that tight-lipped. But I think it's once he establishes that she doesn't trust him. You know, that's how he's able to relax. It's for the fact that he's prepared for her pulling a fast one. And that's exactly what she does. As soon as he turns his back and hits the showers, she takes the tape and takes off. But as I said...
The tape?
Sir Roger Moore was the smartest James Bond, and I think he was because he had to be. He couldn't dominate people the way Connery did, and he didn't have the fire behind the eyes that Dalton had. But what he did have was a very quick brain, and he used it to get himself out of sticky situations and into some sticky situations. I'm not reading that.